Hello and welcome to this edition of the DMZ America podcast. It is Tuesday, October 31st, Halloween. Ooh, 2023. This is episode 123. God, I still can't get over it. Anyway, I'm Scott Stantis, editorial cartoonist, coming to you from the right.
And possibly imbibing cannabis. And I'm Ted Rall, coming to you from the left, high on nothing but life, socialism, and coffee.
the three things. No, I was just struck. I was driving home last night. I just had my phone plugged into the car, and it was randomly playing what I have in the music files of my phone. And for some reason, I have numerous episodes of DMZ America, and I had the one with Mike Thompson.
One of the
which was
ones.
Episode number 43. No, 53. 55.
Has it been that long?
Yeah. Yeah. And it was when he was talking about bullying.
Gotcha.
In the workplace. I just was listening.
For the record, he was opposed to it.
Yeah. Yeah. Yes. It was a good listen. We had a little technical difficulty. We handled it as professionals do. And I was really proud of the product. It was like,
I'm very happy to hear that. Hopefully we're even better now.
I'm not sure if you're like me, but when I look at my cartoons, I always it takes about a year for me to look back on them and go, oh, that didn't suck as bad as I thought it did. Your ego's a little more bigger.
I don't know. I have to give that some thought. I do tend to look at the end of the year when I entered. I will say, when I used to enter contests, something I am not sure I will ever do again. That's when you pick your best 15 or 20 or 10. Or actually, yeah. I used to deliberately pick my worst ones. Maybe that's why I never won. No,
you didn't.
No, I used to pick the ones that I thought the prize committees would be most likely to enjoy, which would not be the same ones I would be most likely to think were the best. So
there's no, at least for my career, there was no secret sauce. I could not, for the life of me, figure out what combination of cartoons they'd want to see, not see. For years I thought, let's have a lot of local stuff. Well, that didn't go anywhere. So all national stuff, that didn't go anywhere. Oh, well, let's just really the most stridently political stuff. Let's try it. No. Or the more flippant stuff. Flippant stuff. And they no. So, and so I'm starting to get the impression, Ted, that it might be my work.
It could be your work and my work too. No.
Well, you're a Pulitzer finalist. You have that.
That's true. It's just apparently I peaked out in the late 90s, and it's been I've sucked ever since.
We all did.
If the prize committee people are to be believed.
And if any of you listened to last week's edition, we're being cis white males, we will never be heard from again.
At least not by the Pulitzer Prizes. That's for certainly sure.
That was patently offensive. I mean, I really was. Those questions, I thought, because last week we helped you fill out your form. I helped you fill out your form.
Yes.
And no, the questions were patently like, they were so transparent that in the message sent,
You know what it felt like? It felt like when people are forced to dig their own graves.
Yes.
It's like that. It's like, here I am. I'm providing you with information that you will now use to fuck me over. And I know it, and I know it, and I know it's just like, what?
And yet we still did it.
Yeah, we still did. Well, we did it for the greater good of the DMZ America podcast.
We did. We hope you learned as much as we did.
But really, truly, for the other, and there are a few cartoonists out there who listen to this, don't fill out that fucking survey. It will fuck you over.
Yes. Yeah. I mean, when they say, God, you're sending it back. They electronically sent it to you with a note that when you send it back, we won't know it's from you.
Yeah. Hashtag not true.
God. Hashtag you think I'm stupid. Hashtag you may be right.
I may be crazy. Hashtag it might be a lunatic you're looking for. Anyway, turn out the light. Oh wait, sorry. I'm gonna have the whole Billy Joel kick here.
What? No, where'd that come from?
No, I was listening to Wire when you
I heard. I could hear in the background.
Yeah. You gotta for people who are into them. If you want something crazy, listen to that thing. Anyway.
Okay, so I understand there's yet another war on the planet that America is backing somebody in.
America, fuck yeah.
Oh God, it's such a great song.
Yeah.
And it's a very funny movie. And I went to go see that Team America, and it is very much the South Park guys being as crude as they can be.
It's
in a
by
lot of
far
ways.
their best product.
Oh, you think so? Oh, I thought
Oh.
Book of Mormon's awfully damn good.
Well, I haven't seen that, so okay, that's true. Of
But
the things I've seen, which you don't know what those are, but yeah.
but Team America was there's, I mean, they have mannequins. They're like, because when Ted and I were kids, they had kids show that had mannequin marionettes, you know, and
Oh, yeah.
so they're having sex in this movie and stuff, and it's so funny
That's
because
true.
I took my son, who at the time was 16, I think 17, and this family comes in with 3 little children. I'm going,
Oh boy.
oh, did you not read about? And so they got
Yeah,
up
this
and
was in
left.
Alabama, so you knew the answer
Yeah,
to that question.
yeah, the reading,
Wow.
yeah, reading not so much. Reading is for the other people. Reading is for the communists. Anyway, okay, so the what do you call it? Hamas war, Israel war.
Well, currently it is being referred to as the Israel-Hamas war. I don't know if Hamas gets top billing or Israel gets top billing. I guess Israel always gets top billing. Well, they've killed the most people, so they should get top billing.
Yeah, you wrote an interesting column. Say, don't call it self-defense. Israel, don't call it self-defense. And if you want to expand on that a little bit.
Sure. I mean, quite simply, obviously, look, I'm very pro-Palestinian rights. I believe in a 2-state solution. I'm against the settler colonialist mentality that informs Zionism and the apartheid state in Israel. Now, that said, that's not what my column was about. My column was about, like, no matter where you stand on, if you're pro-Israel and you think that what they're doing to Gaza is justifiable, you can call it a lot of things, and you can call it like an act of righteous revenge or vengeance. But this whole meme of, like, Israel has a right to defend itself. Well, perhaps Israel has a right to defend itself, but the point is, it certainly can't call this self-defense, because international law very clearly defines what self-defense is. And it's actually, it's not like those things about, like, those political analogies between individuals and government. Like, for example, you have to balance your household budget. The government should have to do it too. I mean, the two things are not the same. Not the least, for example, individuals can't mint their own money. So, well, they can. It's called Bitcoin.
They can.
but they're not supposed to. I guess it's called counterfeiting. But they are very different. But in the case of self-defense, the law is very clear. Whether you're a nation state or an individual, in Western jurisprudence, if you are subjected to an armed attack, which Israel was on October 7th, subjected to a brutal armed attack by Hamas that killed 1,400 of their citizens, and in that moment, they may defend themselves. And what does that entail? Well, basically, it means that they can attack the attackers. They can kill them, arrest them, hurt them, chase them, until the immediate threat to more people is gone. Now, that pretty much happened within hours on October 7th. The IDF sent in troops. They killed some Hamas fighters. Others they chased back into Gaza. They closed the fence back up. At that moment, the self-defense phase of the operation came to a conclusion. And the status quo ante, in other words, the state of affairs that existed prior to October 7th returned to where it was. Now, at that point, self-defense is no longer an issue. Now you're moving into preemptive self-defense. And lest you disagree with me, you can just look at the rhetoric of the Israelis on October 8th, October 9th. Whether you're looking at Prime Minister Netanyahu or the defense minister, they all sort of said some variation of the following: we want to make sure that nothing like this ever happens again. That was their priority. Now that's called preemptive self-defense. That's like, I think you're going to attack me, so I want to take measures to make sure you can't do that going forward. Now, you can certainly take steps to do that. You can fortify, like in the case of Israel, they can fortify the border. They can attempt to arrest the people who were involved. But there's nothing that provides for a sustained bombing campaign. There's nothing that provides for regime change under international law. There was an incident in 1837 that governs all of this, called the Caroline incident. And basically what happened was that there was a ship that was on the Niagara River on the border between Canada and the US. In 1837, there was a rebellion against the Canadian government. And long story short, there was a ship that was involved in transporting supplies to the Canadian rebels that was crossing the river. The Canadian authorities came over the river and attacked the ship, which was called the USS Caroline. And then Secretary of State Daniel Webster wrote a letter that became the definition of modern international law for self-defense, which basically said that they had the right to defend themselves, but not to take preemptive action unless there was a grave and imminent threat to the Canadians, which he argued there wasn't. But anyway, in general, there has to be an imminent, grave, likely threat that's about to occur and could not be stopped by any means other than violence. And then also that response must be proportionate. You cannot, under international law, kill, say, 8,000 Palestinians in order to prevent the threat to 1,400 Israelis. That's disproportionate. Now, you can say that, like, this is not what the law should be, or that's not what common sense says. And that could all be true, but I am just referring to what the law says. And Israel, as a member state of the United Nations, agrees to adhere to the UN Charter. And I understand that, like, they have a bloodlust for vengeance in the same way that, like, say, if someone mugs me in the streets of Manhattan, and let's say they punch me in the nose and steal my wallet, I might have a desire to chase them and beat them up and maybe kill them. I certainly would have such a desire, but I would be breaking the law at that point. As soon as I've been mugged, what I'm supposed to do is call 911 and let the NYPD handle it. In Israel's case, what they were supposed to do is neutralize the threat, immediate threat, and then for the long-term threat, get the UN Security Council involved. Now, they didn't do that. That's what they're supposed to do.
Come on. You can't be serious.
I'm totally serious. So the point is, like,
Ted, that's absurd.
Why is that absurd?
Well, first of all, you have people on the Security Council who would veto any kind of security movement. Who? Russia would not.
Russia would not veto that. Russia doesn't veto stuff that is just for defending Israel. Russia's relationship with Israel is not like an antagonistic relationship at all.
No, yeah, but I'd say they're supportive. Say states that hate Israel, like Syria.
Syria's not on the Security Council.
Russia is. I'm telling you,
Russia would not.
No, it's a silly idea. It wouldn't work. And plus, what are they going to do? What seeing what they've done in the past, the impotent movements of UN whatevers has
okay. Well, so let's just stipulate for the sake of argument that the UN is useless, and we know blue helmets don't get anything done except rape the locals. Okay, fine. But the point is, do what you want to do, but you can't call it self-defense. It's sort of like when the when Obama and Bush said that they wanted to bring Osama bin Laden to justice. That has a specific meaning. That means you put him on trial. It's like shooting him and throwing his body, into the Hindu Kush as you fly away in your Black Hawk helicopters. It's a lot of things. It's revenge. It might even be fair. But is it justice? No. So this is like, I'm making a claim here for the sanctity of the English language. It's not fucking self-defense. It's like you've decided to aggressively take out people who you feel have wronged you. Of course, and by the way, parenthetically ignoring that there was history prior to October 7th, 2023, that sort of, contributed to that happening. Not to say that it's justified or anything, but I'm just saying that, but it's not self-defense. It's a militarily aggressive act of super violence is what it is.
Well, okay, I'm going to say that you can, with great authority, say that this was a imminent threat, not just the attacks, where they killed 1,400 people, but the launching of missiles from Gaza, over,
they
almost
killed those
every
missiles.
day.
Killed an average.
Doesn't matter, Ted.
They killed an average of 3 Israelis a year, which is sucks if you're one of them or their families. I'm not trying to make light of that, but you can't kill 8,000 people to neutralize a threat against 8 people a year.
Well, I think you can. And if they get better missiles, then they're going to have, they want a bigger, they're not doing it and they're not missing on purpose, Ted. They're not saying, they're not lobbing them over this.
They just they just have shitty missiles.
Yes. But what happens if they get good missiles? The body count's going to
you're not allowed under international law to be like, what if? I mean, that's what caused.
This isn't what if they are launching missiles. Ted, they are launching missiles across into Israel almost every day. They have an app
which kill 3 people a year.
Well, that doesn't matter. If they had better technology and had better, smarter people launching, no, they don't. It's not a what if. It's not at all.
You just use the word if. It's a what if.
No, there's not what if.
If they had.
You cannot deny.
If they had nuclear weapons, if they had a team of attack hyenas, they would robotically control them, and it would look awesome.
You can't reasonably deny that the people launching those missiles wished the body count was higher. They're not doing it to be cute. They're not doing it to be a warning.
We live in the real world. In the real world.
Well, people are lobbing missiles. If Canada was lobbing a missile
in the real world, and under international law, as per Daniel Webster, God bless his soul, you're not allowed to kill 8,000 people in 3 weeks to neutralize a threat to 3 people a year. You're just not.
Well,
you can't invade Iraq by saying, well, if Saddam still had WMDs, and if he kept those WMDs, and if he gave those WMDs to Al Qaeda, and then if Al Qaeda were,
but this isn't that long of a. This isn't this big of a stretch. They're launching missiles into another country.
Shitty missiles.
Doesn't matter if they were lobbing shitty missiles into New York, and 90% of them happened to land in the Hudson River. But 2 or 3 of them,
99.9% in this case.
Would you be cool with that? You said, oh, you know what?
I would say that. I think the proportionality is. It's not about like trying to keep a scorecard that's more even. It's about being reasonable. It's sort of like. You weigh the nature of the threat. The threat exists. The threat is real. But, and if you can, for example, let's just say there's a way to neutralize all those missiles by sending in a special Mossad SWAT team, and they end up killing 4 locals to neutralize that threat. That's reasonable. it sucks for the 4 locals, but it's reasonable. But when you're not allowed to just say we are in danger of losing 3 people a year, so we're going to kill 50,000 of yours. No, it's just no. It's international law doesn't permit that level of escalation.
In this instance, I think that. I'm not sure if you heard that. Something.
Was it an Israeli drone?
No, it sounded like your point guys, the guys who are pointalizing your building, just came to my house.
Oh, God. Yeah, well, that was weird. Thank God I did send them over there. So,
well, my house could use it. Okay, we're going to disagree on that aspect of it, but here I'm going to get my crunchy granola, 70s peace, love, dope mantra going here. We in the West, everyone around the world is looking at this. You've got to be aghast at both actions. Okay, we can concede that.
Yeah.
But
And by the way, I'd like to point out that Thomas Friedman, a person who usually should deserve no credit whatsoever because he's reliably wrong about everything, he's like a compass that faces south. Or Michiko Kakutani, the book critic from the New York Times. If I didn't know anything about the book, if she said the book sucked, I'd rush out to buy it. If she said it was great, I'd avoid it like the plague. But Thomas Friedman's been on a roll about this Israel thing. He's Jewish, he's pro-Israel. And he quoted, I'm sure you do remember, in 2008, when the Pakistan Taliban, they raided Mumbai, and they went into the hotel, the Taj Hotel. I stayed there, incidentally, like 3 weeks after this incident. Man, the prices are cheap. We're right after a terrorist attack. You always want to stay at a hotel. They treat you really well. Anyway, the point is, the Indian prime minister at the time decided not to react or respond. They knew who was responsible. They knew the Pakistani government was responsible. They knew what infrastructure to hit, and they decided to just let it lie. And that had an amazing power to it. The turn the other cheek meant that the whole world focused on what a bunch of miserable shitheads Pakistan and the ISI were for having worked with the Pakistani Taliban to kill innocent civilians in a hotel. And it stopped the cycle of retaliation, and the world's public opinion turned against Pakistan and for India. That would have happened with Israel if Israel had just decided, we're just going to stop right now. We're not going to get involved in a military response to this. We'd still be getting to know the victims and the names of the victims and like what their lives were like, and we'd be mourning them. But because of Netanyahu and his cabinet's bloodthirsty reaction to this, wildly disproportionate, where over 42% of all apartments in Gaza are now gone, vaporized. It's like, and the human toll is just brutal. Many more than 8,000 people have been killed. The people who are buried under the rubble don't get counted. It's like, if they had decided to refrain from doing that, the whole world would be like looking admiringly at Israel for their restraint and feeling sorry for them. Now, people have forgotten, except for hardcore supporters of Israel who don't care about the dead Palestinians. The whole world is focused on the Palestinians, and that's just how it is.
Yeah, I think, well, like, I've had issues with, I'm a big supporter, as you know, I'm a great supporter of Israel, and their actions in Gaza and the West Bank, it has bordered on apartheid, and I've wailed against it. This attack, I mean, I don't see the reasoning behind it other than revenge. I don't see, like, here, we're going to do this. We're hoping, like Colin Powell, have a clear-cut objective. Here's what we want to achieve. Here's what victory looks like. So, and so we don't have that.
The UN has officially ruled that it is an apartheid state.
Okay.
You're like, whatever. But I mean,
well, again, the UN is a piece of shit. I'm sorry. I cannot take them seriously in any regard when there's dozens of other states that are far, far worse that they kind of turn their heads and whistle and walk away from. But here's my crunchy granola. We're getting to the crunchy granola part. Ted, someone between those two parties, you and I both agree on a two-party state solution, but someone has to be
the world for the most part.
Yeah. Well, because it makes fucking sense. It's the only solution you can really have. Okay. That makes any kind of sense, but someone has to step up and be the peacemaker. And I just don't see any parties in this. I mean, I thought it was a big mistake. I center clipped about that when President Biden went to Israel and hugged Netanyahu. It would have been courageous for him to go to Gaza and do the same thing.
To Mahmoud Abbas.
No,
you couldn't have gone to Gaza because it's blockaded. He couldn't have gotten in.
Well, we're America, damn it. We can go anywhere we want.
he would have had to go to the West Bank and visit Mahmoud Abbas, but he would have had to get Israeli approval for that, because travel in and out of the West Bank is controlled by Israel. You see the whole apartheid aspect to that.
I know I'm not. Listen, I'm not. When we mentioned this in another podcast, but PJ O'Rourke, when he went and witnessed this, said this is bullshit, and he was a massive supporter of Israel and a conservative, very, very conservative. So I can agree with that. But someone has to, and who's that going to be, Ted? Who's going to step forward and say, we've killed enough for your people, you've killed enough of ours?
Well, it has to look. It has to. Here's the deal. It has to come sort of directly. It has to come from Israel, because Israel has the power in this situation. In any kind of conflict between two parties, the more powerful, if there's a power imbalance, the powerful one has to make the concessions, has to make peace. If whether it's between a parent and a child, or between rival countries, the weak one just doesn't have as much to give. It can't make those concessions. Israel has the seat at the UN. It has the biggest, the strongest military in the Middle East. It has the US and its massive military and financial support. It has the most vibrant economy. Palestine has none of those things. They don't even have a state, and so it has to come from Israel. But Israel's not going to do it. Israel does have a boss, and that's us. And if the president of the United States picks up the phone and tells Netanyahu, cut the shit, they will. And so, or sit down and negotiate, or your allowance is being cut off, $4 billion a year. That'll work. Guaranteed. I mean, that's the U.S. does not want peace in the Middle East.
Oh, come on. Why would we want this to continue?
Are you kidding? I mean, didn't you hear well, I'll get into the Gerard Schroeder thing. But because of the weapons industry, because it's good for business. I mean, the instability that it spreads. I mean, U.S. foreign policy is all about divide and conquer and disruption. It is not. It is that you can see that everywhere in the world. Like, why, well, we'll tell the Taiwanese, you're not a real country. We won't recognize you as independent, but we'll arm the shit out of you so that if the Chinese ever come, you can have a nice big war there. India and Pakistan. Well, we're friends with the Indians, but we'll give money to the Pakistanis too, just to keep things like nice and even and off center. My favorite recent story toward this end. Last week, Gerhard Schroeder, the former Gerhard Schroeder, the former prime minister of Germany, gave an interview to a newspaper in Germany where he revealed that he had been the chief peace negotiator between Russia and Ukraine when the crisis went down in February, March of 2022. And Schroeder negotiated a deal that basically was along the lines of what Russia had been asking for. The Ukraine agreed not to join the UN. Russia and Ukraine, NATO. Sorry, Russia and Ukraine agreed not to fight each other. Ukraine agreed not to shell Donetsk anymore. Donetsk would remain in in Ukraine, but it would be an autonomous area, sort of like the Navajo Nation is in the United States. And the status of Crimea was kicked down the road to be negotiated at a later point, possibly by a plebiscite. And so peace was at hand. Zelensky said, oh, great, but one more thing, I have to check with the Americans. I'm not allowed to make any decisions without pushing it by them. He got back and he said, the Biden White House said no.
Or niet.
Yeah, or niet. Or whatever the Ukrainian version of niet is, which is probably niet. So so the point is the U.S. didn't want peace. During the Bush administration, North and South Korea began very serious talks about reunification. And Bush went fucking insane. He's like, there's a terrible danger of peace breaking out on the Korean peninsula, which could have devastating consequences for defense talks. So we have to put the kibosh on that, told the South Koreans, cut the shit, status quo. The U.S. doesn't like peace. The U.S. is the biggest force for war in the world. And that's one thing both parties have in common, Democrats and the Republicans.
Well, they seem to like war,
worse.
but I think I'm not sure I totally agree with all of what you just said. And there's a lot to unpack. That's all right. But could the Palestinians do a Martin Luther King type movement, nonviolent movement to get their state? Not dissimilar to what Gandhi did in India, what Martin Luther King did.
What would that look like specifically?
I would say challenging the wall, for instance, and having the Israelis look like the bad guys, which is exactly was the playbook of both Gandhi.
I mean, what would they do?
I just said
they're stuck on right now. Up until, like, say, the war started 3.5 weeks ago, the Palestinians were trapped behind this wall, all 2.4 million of them. And so what are they supposed to do? Challenge? What do you mean? I'm just trying to nail you down.
Well, I'm saying,
what are they supposed to do exactly?
Well, I could say, I'm trying like crazy. I'm having a senior moment where the imperial troops in India for England blocked a entrance into, and I can't remember what it was, but the Mahatma Gandhi protesters walked up to them and had them they were clubbed, many of them very, very seriously. When the Gandhi people went to the sea and made salt, which was against the law, because if you control salt, you control a hell of a lot in India, and the British government didn't like them doing that. So again, you want to elicit an overreaction, which doesn't sound too hard in that part of the world.
Well, the problem, I'm very familiar with that history, and I mean, I'm going to say, first of all, it is kind of like I'm setting aside the fact it's not really true that the Indian independence struggle under Gandhi was all nonviolent. There was a lot of violence involved on the pro-independence side that pacifists don't like to talk about. But setting that aside, those were some effective tools. Or, like, for example, when the young men dressed in suits sat at the Woolworth luncheon counter and just wanted to order a hamburger, and basically, like, goons and the sheriffs and their dogs came in and beat them up, and they didn't resist, and it was on television, and it horrified white America in their living rooms. The problem is, for the Palestinians, for the Gazans, they never have that option, because they literally never got to interact with the Israelis. They were behind the wall. So there's no place for them to walk up to and risk being shot or anything, because there's just this electrified.
Right, but you create a situation. I'm not aware of what the stratagem could be, but I'd do it. It could be along those lines. Would that be effective? I do think Israel remains enough of a democracy and cares enough about its image that the world being mortified by them perpetuating what could obviously be described as mindless violence, then that could change the politics. Assuming for a moment,
it's like, I don't know how that looks on the ground, as they say.
I just said we did. I mean, no one, you would have asked that in India, and I would have said,
because the Indians had physical contact with the British occupiers. They could walk up to the Brits and kind of force them to either stop them, shoot them, or let them go. The Palestinians physically they don't have that access to the Israelis. They can't just peacefully march up to an Israeli checkpoint, because it's all like razor wired and blocked in. I mean, basically, it's almost like automated. Well, it is automated. They have like automatic remote control machine guns. They have drones, so they wouldn't have the ability to their sacrifice would never occur.
I think no. I think you walk
up to a place where
it
could be witnessed by the media. You see what I'm saying? In other words, it would just happen like if a tree falls in the woods.
My turn,
please. This is a spirited discussion, and this might be the most spirited discussion we've ever had here.
It is. It's interesting. I think we're looking at, and we're just looking for a solution to this. And
which is the goal of the podcast.
It is. And so my proposal, it's probably too late, and it may run contrary to the temperamentally to the Palestinians, and it may be too late, but I don't think it's ever too late to try peaceful means, and that would be go up to the fence and start taking it down and have the media there. And that's not hard, and that's a lot easier than it's ever been. And show the brutality of the Israelis, and you broadcast and you continually show this is what, and at some point they're going to have to concede and say, yes, yes, there has to be a Palestinian state. Listen, you said you had to go, and we swore we'd make this a short one, and we haven't. So let's cut it off here.
Right. It's true.
Agree to disagree on some of it, and
well, let's get. I do want to talk a little bit about what you think is going to happen next. I mean,
I think they're going to. I think Israel's going to push in. They're in the northern part of Gaza now. They've kind of had a slow motion invasion. You're going to see them move further and further south. At what point have you just trapped people in that the trash compactor scene in Star Wars?
Mm-hmm.
And there's literally no way out. They literally are crushed to death.
Yep. I have to admit, if I lived in northern Gaza, I would not have evacuated.
Well, then you'd be living in rubble or under it.
Well,
from the scenes I've seen.
The difference. I mean, the thing is, like, they're not going to. The Israelis have a long history of not allowing people to return to their homes. It's like, and you're just going to be in the south, which I don't know if I've been to Gaza. There's no substantial infrastructure in the south. The south is like basically the lead up to the Sinai Desert. It's scrub for the most part.
Oh, okay.
And so there aren't like stores really very much. There's not enough infrastructure even in peacetime, such to the extent that Gaza's ever had peace, to deal with an influx of 1 million people or even 100,000 people. So the point is, it's like there'd be no reason. That evacuation order was cruel. I mean, this has been a cruel campaign. It's been indiscriminate, and I guess the point is, I think these people, you're right, they're stuck. Egypt's not going to let them in to the Sinai. They don't want they don't want the responsibility. They don't want to have to spend the money. They don't want the demographic challenge, because when they've had large Palestinian influxes, they've actually tried to challenge their Egyptian hosts for political power in the past, historically.
Yeah.
So they're not the best house guests. And then also it would be kind of letting the Israelis win, right? Like to basically be like, well, now you have Gaza all empty and more room for settlers, So that's not going to change. Those people are stuck in Gaza. My left-wing comrades think that Israel wants to kill all 2.4 million residents of Gaza. I do not believe that to be true, but they're definitely willing to kill quite a few of them.
Yeah, and that's what's going to happen. My suspicion is America is going to put enormous pressure on them not to go in March and do what I just described, but the toll, and then they're going to create some kind of, I don't know how you have a DMZ when Gaza is roughly the width of a DMZ. I mean, a practical one.
Yeah, Gaza it's really useful to think of it as Manhattan. It's a similar
size.
It's similar proportion, similar population, and it's also vertical. So yeah, if you've been to Manhattan, it's like hard to imagine a place where you could create a DMZ of any size.
I don't know how you can. And then I think they are going to impose a puppet regime, and that's not going to.
If they can find one. I mean, there's been this like some talk of like, oh, maybe there could be like a sort of Arab states could, like 4 of them could power share. It would be like Berlin after, in the immediate aftermath of World War II, where there were different countries with different zones and all that. But no one's going to want that. No, and besides which, who would want to take responsibility for this fiasco? Who's going to pay for it? I don't know I don't think the Israelis have thought through the post-Hamas phase. And then, of course, I want to ask you about Hezbollah. If if the anti-Israeli resistance is going to take out Israel once and for all, this is going to be their only and last chance to do it. Would be for Hezbollah, Iran, and Syria to get the team together and go after them. Do you think there's any chance of that?
No. And I think the wars against Israel have proven that wars against Israel usually don't work.
True.
Not usually, they do not work. Israel's badass and they have a really good army, and the Arab countries do not.
True. And Syria is really back on its heels in a huge way. But Hezbollah did bloody Israel's nose last time they went up there into Lebanon.
Yeah, and I think creating a DMZ, which they tried to do, but again, Ted, if you've looked at the map, it's a very narrow strip of land, and with rocket technology, you can, hurl a missile over it pretty easily.
Is a good comparison.
What's that? Lebanon?
No, Israel.
Oh, Israel. Well, I'm saying the border between South Lebanon and North Israel, that's where Israel had, that's what the invasion was. They set up a DMZ. They have a hard time. You'd have to, I'm not even sure how wide a DMZ you have to create nowadays. I mean, the one across that separates North from South Korea is by modern standards pretty narrow.
True. I mean, it certainly wouldn't stop missiles.
No, you could lob anything over there. I mean, and that
Israel has Iron Dome. It's very effective. But it wouldn't get everything, not if there's a barrage. And Hezbollah has much more sophisticated missile capability. They just revealed yesterday, I don't know if you heard this, it's just late breaking news. Hezbollah has a little secret, which is they now have sophisticated surface-to-air missiles, and they didn't used to. Okay. That's kind of, a lot of analysts think it's a game changer because it means that they will be able to intercept Israeli jets as well as incoming missiles.
Well, I think too, I mean, this gets so complicated, Ted. And here's the thing. If I was head of Israel, no one asked me to be, damn it.
That's a job I would not want.
Do you have a direct attack on Iran, who's clearly underwriting this?
Oof. I mean, I think the best precedent for this would be the early 80s when Israel knocked out, was that the Osiris nuclear missile complex that was in Iraq under Saddam Hussein?
Yes. Oh gosh, yeah.
That was like 81 or 82 maybe. And I remember just being shocked that the Iraqis never retaliated, but I guess they couldn't. But that's the difference. Iran can. Iran has accurate long-range ballistic missiles. Iran is a real country. Iran can destroy Israel. Even if they don't have nuclear weapons. I mean, there's only 4 major cities in Israel. I mean, they don't have that much population. They're pretty small, really. They could put an end to Israel as a viable state in a matter of hours. They have 550. They have 550 MiG fighter jets in excellent working order. They have long-range missiles that can hit any target in Israel. I think it would be hell to pay. You'd be stirring up one hell of a hornet's nest at that point. And then that would also put, it would really test the Sunni Shia divide. All the Gulf states, even the Saudis would have to be, their own populations would be demanding that their governments go to war against Israel. Algeria, Egypt.
Yeah, well, I'm not so sure Iran has that many friends in the region.
They don't, but the people on the street would be like, this is bullshit.
Yeah, I'm just curious, and that's why they haven't done it. It would have to be a surgical strike, and that the fact is what you're striking is their financial and military underwriting for Hamas and Hezbollah.
And how can you do that? I mean, what is there one building in Tehran you can hit that does that? No. You kill the Ayatollah, that doesn't do that. I mean, we killed their equivalent of the chairman of their Joint Chiefs of Staff. Like Trump assassinated him, right? With that drone back, a few years ago.
Oh my gosh, I'd forgotten that. Yes.
Nothing happened. I mean, it's like you can't kill. Americans always like to think like, if we kill this key person, if we kill Like if we decapitate Hamas, if we do this, it's not that easy. Like when your adversary is fueled by an idea that you're fueling, you have to stop fueling that idea. That's the key. Like you have to take away the attractiveness of that idea. I mean, the Brits kind of did that finally in the end with the IRA when they legitimized Sinn Féin and gave them seats in the Irish Parliament. That was how they did that.
That's another area. I mean, that's another discussion, but we should probably talk about sometime is that's Northern Ireland. How the fuck is that still part of England?
That's ridiculous.
No, it's absurd. It is absurd. Look at a map.
Ireland should be one contiguous country.
Yes.
It's an island.
There it is.
Yeah, I mean, that's clear.
Island.
That's crystal clear.
Have you ever been
there's
there?
Still some relics like that. There's like, like France still has two little islands off the coast of Canada, Saint-Pierre et Miquelon. And they're still French colonies. Yeah.
Are they?
They're part of
the no idea.
They would be in the Maritimes. They're like right near Prince Edward Island. You can take a ferry from Prince Edward Island. And the Canadians are like, yeah, whatever.
Well, I mean, it could be one of those like, what's on it? It's
they're just fishermen. Yeah.
Yeah, it's 10 feet of bird shit. It really is like, yeah, you can have it. Vive la France.
Yeah, and of course the Caribbean is full of colonial relics like that.
Yeah, well, you have a relative who lives in Saint Martinique, right?
In Martinique, yeah. Mm-hmm. And that's
it's Saint Martinique.
No, it's not Saint Martinique. There's Martinique and Guadeloupe, which are two fairly large islands in the Caribbean. And they're both French départements, which are kind of like they're like Hawaii and Alaska are for us. They're not like Guam.
I love Guam. God bless Guam.
I know. That's why I always mention Guam to you whenever I have the chance.
And always get.
I got to tell you, if the Israelis were doing this shit to Guam, you'd be up in arms.
Oh God! Well, of course, you don't mess with my people, my fellow Guamians.
I know.
Chewing Guam, or I don't know,
whatever they do in Guam.
Okay, we're going to. Thank you. That was spirited. I got my. That's good for us.
It is good for us. Everyone thinks we're too. Sometimes people think we're too nice to each other, and I still love you, Scott. I mean, I'm not even sure. I was going to say I think you're wrong. I'm not even sure you're wrong, but I mean, I do think that this is a very dangerous place. I mean, no one knows what happens next, but
my fear is
I do know that even if you really support Israel, you can't approve what they're doing now because this is going to be bad for Israel.
Yeah.
In the long run, it's turning international opinion against. I mean, I looked up what the polls were before we move on, Scott, and currently only 49% of Americans say that they're in favor of Israel in the current conflict. 26% say they feel sympathy for both the Palestinians and the Israeli. 10% currently feel sympathy only for the Palestinians. So you might look at that and say, oh, that's good for Israel, but that's soft support. I mean, at this early stage after October 7th, you give me like 5 grinding months of, 100,000 dead Gazans, regional spread into Hezbollah. We'll see how those numbers look. I mean, when we invaded Afghanistan, the American public was 91% behind it. And only one congresswoman voted against it.
Who was that?
Barbara Lee, who deserves to have statues made of her. Barbara Lee of the San Francisco Bay Area representative, she voted against the authorization to use military force against Afghanistan. But otherwise, every Democrat in the House and the Senate voted for it.
Wow. Well, there's a woman who voted against World War II. She's the only one who voted against the declaration of war. I'm trying to remember where she.
I wonder what her reasoning was.
She didn't like war. War's stupid. War is dumb. War is just stupid.
It's hard not to declare war after you've been attacked by a sovereign nation state, which is what Pearl Harbor had done.
I understand. But that was intelligent sounding. I don't know that I would have agreed with her vote, but most votes, if like Korean conflict, Vietnam, all the others, I mean, wars are dumb. They're just dumb. And they never achieve. They always achieve what one party had as their goal to begin with. So, and then you can compromise on that and you can get together and talk and you can actually discuss as, grown-ups, but no.
Yeah. Yeah. No, it's true.
But when you sell a
divorce-
fighter jet for $1.2 billion and, there's a 20% profit margin,
that's tasty.
that's very tasty.
Gotta like that. Gotta like that. I mean,
We
I could
should-
I could look past all my fucking morals for 20% of $1.2 billion.
Well, why don't we have the Ted Rall flamethrower drone?
Oh,
We
now
could
we're
perfect
talking.
this. Yeah.
That's right. Yeah.
You
If
want
that-
to terrorize somebody? You want to,
Oh, true.
it doesn't, I mean, bombing's too good when bombing's too good for them. Send in the Rall.
Yep. Yep. There's quite a few people. I mean, my flamethrower drone list is down to maybe 18 because I'm mellowing out in my old age. You know who you are.
Speaking of Ted Rall and his higher ambitions, they got crushed last week. Crushed. And we're going to talk about that when we come back right after a brief pause.
Good tease.
Thank you. Why is that not working? Oh, golly. Okay. Now I can say, hold on a second.